the biggest entrepreneur platform on the planet. This is Business Rockstars.
Today, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Joel Clark and Cameron Smith, the co-founders of Kodiak Cakes. Kodiak Cakes began as a small family pancake mix operation based in Park City, Utah. The brand has then expanded to sell individual oatmeal, brownie mixes, frozen waffles, prepackaged pancakes, granola, protein bars, etc. Joel and Cameron give advice to early stage founders, talk about their experience on Shark Tank, and growing to 200 million in annual revenue as one of the best-selling pancake mixes in America. This is such an inspirational story, and I think you will really enjoy it. Joel and Cameron, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having us.
So Joel, tell me about the start of Kodiak Cakes and your entrepreneurial journey.
No, it's a pretty homegrown story, actually. I mean, it was the idea to do Kodiak Cakes was my mom's idea, and it was based on her recipe. She had this awesome pancake recipe that we loved growing up, and it was whole grain, whole wheat. She had a wheat grinder. She'd grind wheat and make all kinds of healthy things that we didn't always love, but we actually loved her pancakes. And she always had this idea to make a product out of it and sell it. So when I was 8 years old, we made homemade pancake mixes in brown paper lunch sacks, and I went around the neighborhood and knocked on some doors and sold these little homemade pancake mixes to the neighbors. So we kind of let that die out. We didn't keep going with it at the time, but that was kind of the inspiration of it. And then years later, in the mid '90s, my older brother John took the idea of a pancake mix from my mom's recipe and created the first product, Kodiak Cakes, and the brand and everything, and asked me to help him start selling it. So that's kind of how we got into this.
That's amazing, really family grown. And how did you two meet? What was that story like?
I'll let you take that one, Cameron.
Yes. So yeah, it's a funny story. So I actually met Joel. I was going to school at the University of Utah and saw a job post on the job board for Kodiak Cakes. I had never really heard of the company. I remember looking at the website and seeing that and being like, I don't know that I want to go there. But I was looking for a job. I was getting close to being done with school, and I reached out to Joel. I went and met with he and his dad, and at this time we were right by the city mission. It was the office was kind of a dump. So I remember walking in there thinking, I don't know about this place. But once I met Joel and his dad, we just kind of hit it off. And I remember walking away. And I chatted to my wife after. I remember thinking, man, this is actually pretty fun. This feels like it's pretty early stages, and there's a lot of opportunities to grow. So I got pretty excited at that time, and sales for Kodiak were around $800,000 a year at that time. And so I think for me, I just got excited about just being involved with something that had a lot of opportunities to keep growing. So I mean that's how we met. And then for us, we've been traveling together for, it's almost been 11 and a half years now. So every time we travel together, when we first started traveling together, Joel told me, he said, hey, so when I was traveling with my dad, we would share a room. Are you okay with that? Because it's cheaper for the business to share a room. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we started doing that, and even today, it's kind of weird when we don't share a room. It's almost like, wait, we're not sharing a room. It's kind of weird. So we just I think that was a really good start for us, because we were able to really have a lot of conversations pretty early on, a lot of energy between the two of us talking about the business while we were traveling to shows or to buyers. And the pillow talk at night was about, where could Kodiak Cakes go, and what if we did this, and what if we tried this new item, and tried this marketing activity. So that energy, we just kind of just built on each other's energy, and I think that also helped for us as we started working together, and even over the past 12 years.
Yeah, and you guys became family really quick then, from not knowing each other to sharing hotel rooms and talking about the business. And for those who are not familiar with Kodiak Cakes, what is Kodiak Cakes? How does it set you apart from just a regular pancake?
So yeah, I mean, so we started out obviously, like you said, as a pancake mix, and what we were about in the beginning was taste. So my brother would say this like, "Hey, I want to make a product that tastes awesome, that's nutritious, and is convenient." And so for us, it was all about 100% whole grains. So and my mom was always into whole grains, and so that carried into Kodiak Cakes, and that's just stayed as a big part of our brand. So whole grains and protein is a big part of our brand too. That was a little bit later, but it's and what we're trying to do is elevate nutrition in categories that we go into. So mostly, then things that taste awesome. We wanted to make whole grain products taste really good, and then make them as convenient as we could. So we started out as, like you said, a pancake mix, but then we started to get into other categories like frozen waffles, and we're into other baking mixes. We have a big oatmeal business, and we're starting to get into the bar category with granola bars. So we're doing a lot of different things now, and there's just a lot more places that we're going to take the brand into the future as well.
And I can attest, my baby loves the pancakes. My husband loves the oatmeal. I love the waffles. But you first started from refurbishing old trucks and flipping them to start a business. You kind of had to really get creative to pursue your passion and dream and to see the business scale. What was the first step you took after you realized you were really serious about scaling this business?
Hey, I'm going to interject real quick. Brittany, he still does that. He still buys and refurbishes trucks. So it's that
my lips are sealed.
Yeah, it's that passion that that doesn't die.
Sometimes to my wife's chagrin, right? It's just like there's always like an old truck laying around our house.
Yeah.
But it's just so much fun. But yeah, so I did do that for like it was kind of essential back in the day to try to make ends meet, trying to get this little business off the ground. So I supplemented our income with like flipping old trucks, and it was pretty fun. So it still is kind of a fun passion now. But like when I first quit my job, that was in 2004, and we had just gotten into Safeway with our product, and I was like, okay, I think I can actually do this now. So I quit my job 2004, went into this full time with my dad, and the two of us worked together for about 4 years on this, and then that's when Cameron came. So that was a big step out of the dark, like that time. Like I was working for a consulting firm, and I had like a job, and I had been doing this. I'd been doing Kodiak Cakes on the side at night, but I remember like thinking, okay, am I actually going to do this? Like, am I really going to take that step and quit my job and go full time, give up another potential career, and go chase after this little pancake mix dream? So that was really hard, but I think I had to get there. I had to go, okay, am I serious about this? Am I going to do it? And am I going to take the steps and make the move? And so I did, and I think all business owners or entrepreneurs really have to get to that point where it's like, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to make a move and take a step out into the dark. So that was hard.
And how long were you at the consulting firm before you decided to quit and only focus on Kodiak Cakes?
So, excuse me, I had worked for this consulting firm for about a little over a year and a half, right after I finished my undergrad at the University of Utah. And then I went and got a master's degree. I went to get an MBA in business, and then I came back to that consulting firm for another almost 2 years. And so I had been there, a total of, call it 3.5 years or so. And so, another couple of years, and then finally just said, okay, I'm going to go.
What advice do you guys have for someone who's working, a day job essentially, and they really want to start a business, but, they don't have the funds to get started, or they're really scared to kind of leave their 9 to 5?
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, I know for Joel, his story is a little bit different, and for me, I remember there a couple of times talking to my wife, she would say, hey, you should probably get paid more than this for what you're doing, right? So like you have to be willing to sacrifice, but you also have to be willing to call it when you need to call it, right? I mean, and because I think sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to sacrifice for 20 years. but really, I mean, for me, it's just the reason why Kodiak works, and I don't even think we realized this at the time, but it's hitting a lot of functional needs for consumers. So it's hitting the needs that they have from a nutritional, from an ingredient standpoint. So because it's hitting those, then the emotional side for it is just like you said. My kid loves it, my husband loves it, I love it, and we all love it for different reasons. And so that brings the family together. And so you have that emotional connectedness to the brand. So what happens is that as you have that and other people around you have that connection to the brand as well, it makes it that much stronger. So this is my long way of getting to advice would be if you're looking to create a brand or create something, it has to hit those need states. It has to hit a functional need that people have. And if you can tie in that emotional need, that passion for the product that at times may feel irrational. If you look at different brands that people love, at times it feels irrational, right? If you think about whether it's Lululemon, whether it's Patagonia, whether it's Tesla, and just the love that their consumers have for those products, there are a lot of reasons to say that that's not the very best product. There's someone that's doing something better, but at the end of the day, these products are great products, and it's delivering on the functional needs, and that emotional one brings it together. So someone who's looking to start something, I would say start there and really take a look at what you're doing, and is this hitting those needs for consumers, and could it actually go somewhere?
And then it gives you confidence when you actually have to take that leap, because you know that people love it so much. And I think that's what kept Cameron and I going early on. We had these passionate consumers that would write us letters and say, "Man, I love Kodiak Cakes." And even when Cameron first came, it was like he was kind of blown away at how passionate people were about this brand. And honestly, that's what really kept me in the game was these consumers that loved it so much. And I kept thinking, I got to stay and do this. People really love the product. If I'm here long enough, it'll work.
Absolutely. And do you guys have any advice on, you guys have such a strong brand, and I know it didn't happen overnight and it took you a while to get to where you are today. But what advice do you have for someone who's really looking to build their brand? And, the healthy food space is so oversaturated right now. I didn't mean to do that in quotes, but it is so oversaturated right now. How do you make sure that your brand keeps standing out among all the noise? And what advice do you have for people who are just starting a brand?
Well, I mean, I would say you really sometimes people appreciate the power of really great positioning, right? And so I remember early on we were at a trade show, and this guy who'd been in the industry for a long time came up to me and he's like, "Hey Joel, it's all about cosmetics." And so he was looking at the packaging and going, "It's all about different packaging." And I remember thinking, well, yeah, maybe that's kind of part of it, but really at the heart of it is how differentiated is your packaging and your brand and your product, right? So you have to have differentiated product. You have to have a brand that really owns something and stands for something. And so then if you can really get that, then I think then you have something that you can own. So I think for us at Kodiak Cakes is we have differentiated products that are whole grains. They taste really good. There's protein in them, things like that. But when people come and copy you, right, then how do you continue to stand out? And the way you do that is by creating a brand that is powerful, that owns something in consumers' minds. So I think for us, like we have this really cool active outdoor lifestyle element, which is unique in food. And so we're in Park City, and so that's a big part. We want to be inspiring to people to live more active and eat healthier. And so I think for us, there's going to be a big emphasis on the brand and making sure that it's unique and it's differentiated, and that people engage with the brand in an emotional way. So if you really push those elements, then I think you can, you avoid life cycle issues into the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to your question, Brittany, you're exactly right. As you look at the food industry, there are so many brands that are popping up, what feels like daily with the amount of brands that are out there. But if you go throughout the grocery store, and if you take a second and look category by category, product by product, and say, what does this brand stand for? What does it actually mean to me? A lot of times the product is just delivering a functional need for consumers that the brand itself doesn't mean anything to consumers. The product means everything. There's examples of products that have done that go through that life cycle. They have their day in the sun and they grow really quickly, and then once a competitor comes, they then shrink because that brand wasn't as meaningful and long lasting to consumers. And so for us, and I wouldn't even say that we've arrived and we've hit that for Kodiak even yet. We're trying to think a lot about that and think a lot about what is the emotional attachment that consumers have to Kodiak. What is their why on why they're always going to be connected to us? If you look at a great brand like Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is always trying to be in those emotional points for you. If you go to an amusement park or do some sort of activity, you're at a baseball game, Coca-Cola is everywhere. So that emotional connectedness of, I'm at this baseball game, I'm having a great time, and I'm drinking a Coke. So every time you drink a Coke, you're taken back to that baseball game, that time with family. For us at Kodiak, we want people, whether they're camping, whether they're doing activities with their family, Kodiak's a part of that. So whenever they have Kodiak, they think, man, I love that time with my family, or I love those activities that we do together. Kodiak helps me do that. So for us, our approach is kind of that standing out. What does hard goods do really, really well that we can take and apply to food that isn't currently there, because food is so functional? We want to bring that emotional attachment. And so that's something that we're constantly working on and thinking about.
Absolutely. And you have to have a good product, which you guys have, so, and then the brand grows from there. Starting out in the early days, what was one of your biggest challenges that you faced? And because growing a business, you face a new challenge every day. What was one of the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you overcome it and learn a lesson or grow stronger?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think a couple of things kind of come to mind for me. And one of them is the challenge of not having resources, like having no capital was a huge challenge. And I think when I first took this little business over from my brother, I was motivated and I was confident. I thought, I can go do this. I can make this thing happen. And I got in, and pretty soon I realized this is going to be a long, hard slog. I don't have any money to put into it. I need resources. And so I think that is one of the reasons why it took us a long time. It took us 16 years to hit $1 million in revenue. It's crazy. It took us a long, long time to get this thing off the ground. And part of that is because we were under-resourced. We didn't have capital, and people weren't really putting money into small food, back in those days. And so it really did take a long time and had to bootstrap. So I think the challenge was limited resources and having to persevere through that. And I ran this thing on the side for 7 years as a side hustle. So that was hard, but I think, over time I learned about myself. I learned that I could persevere. I needed to. I learned that was something I had to do, and I had to be patient. And I had to stick it out. And I kind of felt like if I could just give it enough time, it could work, and so I felt like one of the reasons if it didn't work would be because I just literally couldn't keep going with it. I felt like the product was good enough. So I think that was the big lesson for me, was just learning to be patient and just to stick it out.
Yeah, patience is huge, because we live in a world where today we want everything fast and we want it delivered right now. So I think that's really good advice for entrepreneurs, is to really be patient and stick it out if you really believe in your dream. What was it like getting Kodiak Cakes into major retailers? What was that process like?
It was a full mixed bag. It was getting it into those retailers. I remember Joel and I, when I first started, I was like, man, we've got to get these into more places. And I was pretty young, and he said, okay, here's a list of gift shops that we used to sell to, throughout the US, but a bunch of just mom and pop type stores. Why don't you start calling them? I was like, okay, you got it. So I took that list and started calling them, and it felt like a long road. I felt like, man, if I'm calling these, it's going to take us a really long time to try and grow this. But if we can get this into retailers, maybe there's some real revenue there. There's more consumers. So we started working on that. I reached out to Target, and Joel had some contacts there. Reached out to them, had a call, and went out and met with them, and that was super scary. At that time, Target was just starting to get into grocery and retail. Not retail, but grocery. They'd primarily done clothing, and so for us, this was, hey, this could be a big opportunity, but it's not your Kroger's and Walmart's of the world. So I went out and met with them, and I remember at that time the buyer said, hey, we're going to test Kodiak into 30 and 40 stores. We were really excited, but also really nervous, because what we saw is this is our shop. This is our opportunity to prove that Kodiak can work in other markets and at Target in a small subset of stores. So I remember Joel and I were constantly talking about, hey, how can we get the sales up at Target? Every week we were looking at how many units per store per week we were selling, and trying to be really creative to increase that. I remember a year later we talked to our buyer, and the buyer said, hey, this is going really well. We want to expand you to 1,600 stores. And I remember for Joel and I, we were like, no ways, this is huge. 1,600 stores. This is a big deal. This is going to be nationwide. This is one of those steps that starts to put Kodiak on the map, which is really exciting. But then it's also really nerve-wracking too, because this is your opportunity. You either can seize the opportunity and the items start to really sell and turn, or when they're on the shelf, you see that it actually doesn't work. It actually doesn't resonate. You had your shot, and then Kodiak slowly, just dissolves and goes off, and it doesn't amount to anything. So for us, we were constantly thinking about, how can we make this be successful? How can we increase our sales? And we were selling at that time 1 unit per store per week. And I remember Joel and I were like, man, that isn't very good. It was fine. We went and met with our buyer, and our buyer said, hey, I'd love to see how we can get this up to 4 units per store per week. And we were like, I don't even know how we could do that. How do we take it and 4 times where we're currently at? That's what took us to Shark Tank. That's what, as we were thinking, how can we get more eyes on Kodiak? We saw, just like Joel talked about, we saw as consumers tried this product, they loved it. We needed to get this into more hands, but we didn't have a big marketing budget to go and spend and blow it out. So we had to think really creatively. At that time we didn't have any private equity investors, so we started to think about, hey, what could be a good path? I was a big fan of Shark Tank. And so that kind of took us to, hey, if we could go on a Shark Tank, that could be great for exposure, but it also could potentially be great to find a new partner that can help us think through some of these next steps as we grow Kodiak. And that Shark Tank thing was a really big boost for us and drove a lot of awareness, to the point that we got to that 4 units per store per week. And even today, we're doing 3 times of that. So in Target stores, some of our items are, in the double-digit units per store per week that we're selling. So it's where we were at and where we're at now. It's just been interesting to see how that kind of has grown and evolved, and it's kind of been a similar thing, retailer by retailer, that there's been a different story for each retailer along this journey.
Yeah, I read that you're now the top selling category at Target. So let's back up to Shark Tank. So you guys went on Shark Tank, you passed on the deal. Tell me about that experience, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs are really enamored of Shark Tank and would love to get on and kind of hear about your experience.
Yeah, that was interesting, because we went on the show, like Cameron said, looking for exposure and a partner, like looking for capital. We were starting to get momentum in the business, and had felt for a while like, hey, it would be great to get resources, right, to get some money to help us grow. But when we went on the show, well, first of all, it was scary. I mean, I will say that, like, the experience itself, it was actually scary. So like, you're sitting there in the hallway, we haven't met them yet at all. We're just kind of sitting there, and then all of a sudden they turn on the lights and tell you to walk down the hall. So now I remember just feeling like really just like nervous, like, okay, what is this going to go? How is this going to go down? I hope we do well, But anyway, so we got out there, and I remember it was kind of feeling really nervous. Once we started our pitch and started the discussion, the nerves kind of went away, and it became pretty conversational. But we did get a couple of offers, when Kevin offered us, he offered us $500,000 for like half the business. And then Robert offered us $500,000 for like 35% of the business. It was interesting because we were asking we only wanted to give away like 10% of the business. So their offers were really low. Yeah. And so I remember immediately just like mentally kind of checking out. Like I immediately kind of in my mind, I'm like, okay, let's get out of here. This isn't even close. And like,
Yeah.
hopefully we can still get the publicity. So I kind of started to wrap it up. And then Cameron, who's next to me, he had like way more presence of mind, and he's like, counter, you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, we should do that. That's what you do. So, you know, and then that got edited out, but it was pretty funny because like he kind of brought me back. I'm like, oh yeah, focus. We're here. Let's do this.
Right.
So then we countered at like 15%, and you know, we still weren't even close, and so we ended up just walking off. But really incredible experience, and you know, we were just fortunate that they still aired the episode because it really did give us a massive exposure boost to the brand.
That's amazing. And today, Kodiak Cakes is approaching 2 million in annual revenue, as one of the best-selling pancake mixes in America.
200 million.
Yeah, 200 million. Sorry, did I not say 200 million?
2 million. That's okay.
200 million is a lot.
Right?
Yes. 200 million in annual revenue. Did you ever think you would get to this point that you're at today? And what do you really attribute your success to?
Oh man, I mean, maybe I'll quickly start. If you want to add anything, Cameron. I mean, no way did we think we'd get here. I mean, there's just no way. And I think over the years, it's just our vision for where the brand could go has just expanded little by little, right? And it's like, I think we thought at one point we could. I remember years and years ago telling somebody, I think we could get this thing to $2 million in the pancake category, right? And then I remember Cameron and I were at one point, we're like, I think we could get to 20 million. And then it became, I think we can get it to 100 million, right? Then we went past that and we're like, we think we can get to 200 million. I mean, it's just it just continues to blow us away. And I think, I mean, honestly, I'd say like, why? Like, probably the biggest reason is because we really did surround ourselves with incredible people. I mean, we have an incredible team. We brought on some amazing people that helped us to expand our visions. We have an incredible group of investors that are involved today that really did that, brought tons of vision to the table and helped us to navigate how to build a business. And so I think it's just the people that we've been around who opened our minds and have mentored us and taught us. And that's, I think, probably the biggest reason why we've had success to this point.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, there's, you know, we talk a lot about it here at Kodiak, and that's being hungry and staying scrappy. You know, we're evolving as a business, and we're adding in processes as we need them, and you know, making sure that we can professionalize where we need to. But that scrappiness and that hunger, you know, for Joel and I, both of our dads growing up were teachers. They were religious teachers, and they had second and third jobs, and so there was that hunger from them just to be able to put, you know, more food on the table. And so for us, that hunger is, well, hey, if other people can do it, we can do it too. We can figure it out. We can learn it. So it becomes a little bit of a, you know, some tenacity on, you know, we're going to push through. But then along that path, we had a lot of lucky breaks. You know, I wouldn't say at all, this is totally because we've had this vision. It's been, no, we've been scrappy and we've been hungry, but then a lot of things have fallen into place, and we've been really fortunate along that path, from Shark Tank to Costco to Target to you know, and really just having great relationships with some of those people. We always say internally, we want to be great to work with. Anyone that works with us, we want to be great to work with. We want to come as we are and leave better. And I think the brand has kind of embodied that as well. Just an authentic, approachable brand. So that's been important for us as we grow.
That's amazing. I love your story. It's an approachable story, mom and pop shops, you know, to this huge expansion. And if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, just like a quick blip, what would you tell yourself?
I mean, I think for me, I sort of already said this before, but it would be patient. Just be patient, stick it out. It's hard to do. It really is hard to do, but that little message, I think, says a lot.
Yeah, I'd probably second that. I'm not the most patient person, but I've learned the importance of being patient.
And what's next for Kodiak Cakes, and where can people learn more about you? And if they want to purchase, where can they go?
So you can, I mean, go to our website. That one's pretty easy, kodiakcakes.com. And we're in most grocery stores around the country. I mean, you can go to the pancake set and find us in almost every grocery store around. And then I think in terms of like, we talked about other areas we're in, like frozen waffles, we're in the bar category, like with granola bars, we're in oatmeal. And so we're just going to continue to innovate and create all kinds of really cool new products to go across the center of the grocery store. So we're really excited. There's a really bright future for Kodiak Cakes, and a lot of growth ahead.
Well, Joel and Cameron, thank you so much. I'm a big fan of Kodiak Cakes, and I'm so excited to see where you are in the next 5 years.
Awesome, Brittany.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for the support.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Joel and Cameron, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Business Rockstars.